This fall, the Sandman, Adam Sandler, You're My Best Friend Tour.
I feel like we're very good friends now.
Casey Center, Saturday, October 4th. Get tickets now at HiVTix.com.
Chad Leistikow, Scott Dochterman, the two biggest Hawkeye and Big Ten beat writers, together on one show. GameDay Men's Health proudly presents Legends and Listeners, best enjoyed with an easy Eddie from Big Grove Brewery. This is Legends and Listeners, exclusively on Iowa Everywhere.
Hey, Hawkeye fans, Big Ten fans, and Iowans everywhere. It is Legends and Listeners. I think we're on our 111th episode, Scott, which is 95 numbers shy of where Kirk Ferentz now stands on the all-time wins list. Scott Dochterman of The Athletic, Chad Leistikow, Des Moines Register. We're coming to you from the Channel Seed Studios, as always. Scott, you wrote a really nice piece the other night on Kirk. Feels like that's sort of been the vibe the last couple of days, honoring Kirk Ferentz. It really is a tremendous record, even though the opponent, Massachusetts, was not exactly... Might have been one of the worst of the 206, to be honest.
Yeah, right. It's going to be fair to call them Massachusetts instead of Massachusetts. Yeah, it wasn't a real... It was an opponent. You know, that's really what you call it. And actually, they were supposed to play in like November originally, and the game got moved up to September, which was perfect. You know, going into this season, Chad, I was even going all the way back to the bowl game. I thought, man, it would kind of stink if Kirk gets the record against Albany. You know, and so when they lost to Mizzou, I thought, well, this sets it up nicely for a big win or something against Iowa State. And of course, that didn't happen. But the more I think about it, Chad, I think having this win against UMass was the right tone, because it enabled Iowa and BTN to really celebrate the history of this accomplishment. And I think it deserves that. And I think Kirk Ferentz deserves this. And, you know, he's been overlooked and continues to be overlooked by too many people. But I think overall, this is a major accomplishment. And I think the fact that he was a little uncomfortable with it, but it needed to happen. And I'm glad it was able to happen the way it did.
Well, what stands out to you the most about the magnitude of it, Scott? I mean, obviously we know the names: Woody Hayes, Amos Alonzo Stagg, Bo Schembechler, Joe Paterno. Those are the four names behind him. Obviously, iconic names. Hayden Fry, 6th on that wins list. But you know, and as I put in my column, as he would joke, you know, I also have the most losses of those guys, and that's true too. But you know, you just have to put in, you know, it's where he's winning at. You know, it's the University of Iowa head coach is atop all of those names, and so he's lasted a long time. You know, he's had his signature wins along the way. He's had a couple championships. He's had 5 top 10 finishes. But what stands out to you, I guess, about the magnitude of 206 and counting?
I think it's really that he hasn't had an extended period of a downturn. There have been moments, you know, I think 06 and 07 and a little bit of 08, where, you know, one stretch he was somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 and 15 in the regular season. And it was like, okay, are you just kind of, you know, spinning your wheels, or are things going to move forward? And then, of course, what did he do? He rattled off 6 out of 7 to finish that year, 9 straight the next year. This was a high operation, you know, going forward. And then there was kind of that lull after 2.0, and where they were like 21 and 19 and 5 years in the Big Ten, and it just felt like they were running in place there. And then, you know, the ramp up 12-0 and everything. And even the last 10 years, I think what really stands out to me, Chad, is, you know, we were there for the fall or the downturn of Hayden Fry. We watched the whole career, you know, grow up watching him, you know, covered him at the end. And it really just kind of slumped at the end of that era. I mean, really from after the 1991 season, the last about 6 or so years, there was like one good one, and that was it. And there hasn't been that with Kirk. You know, they're 11th in Power 5 victories since 2015. They haven't had a season where they've won fewer than 8 games and over that span. It shows remarkable consistency, the ability to weather this era that's ever changing, and continue to win at a high level.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I've been my mute button. I'm slow on it today. I think what stood out to me was, and you and I were talking about this in the press box before the game on Saturday night, before Iowa's 47-7 win over UMass. Who's going to pass him ever? Like, I really don't. I think that's a legit question. Like, can anyone ever pass him? I mean, certainly you could. There's more games than ever now. I mean, with the playoff era, you can win 15 in a season. You could rattle them off like that. But like 206 wins is a lot of wins. If you go down, the next most active person on that list is James Franklin with like 103, something like that, 103. And Brett Bielema. I mean, think about all the years he won at Wisconsin, and now he's winning at Illinois. He won 10 games last year. Yeah. He's at 98. Like, just say how much more. That's a long way to go. Like, to get to 206, I mean, it really is amazing. I mean, you would have to win 10 games a year and stay at that job 21 years to pass Kirk Ferentz.
Right.
In a Big Ten, that's very difficult, right? I mean, I don't know. Dan Lanning, could he do it? Maybe someday. I don't know. But is he going to stay there, for 25 years? I don't know. Probably not.
Well,
and can he sustain it? It's just weird. It's a remarkable thing.
Exactly. I had a mailbag question asking that same thing today in my Big Ten mailbag, and it was and I mentioned Ryan Day. He's 46 years old and he's 73-10 right now as coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. If he coaches 15 more years, yes, he's going to break that record unless Kirk coaches another 15 years, but which may happen. I don't know, but. Will he last in that pressure cooker for 15 more years? That is an insane environment. That is, to me, Ohio State is what Notre Dame was when we were younger. It just turns people gray. And we saw what it was like last year after they lost to Michigan. So can he do it? I mean, James Franklin officially is 104-42 in 11 seasons. He's 53 years old. Will he last at Happy Valley for 17, 18 years? If he does, then yes, he can pass it. But will he last that long, or will he leave, go somewhere else? I just don't know that coaches are going to have that kind of longevity, Chad. And that's, to me, is as big of a hallmark as anything. Now, I think what's a fair discussion is that schools like Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, and it's tougher to get a coach to stay like the way Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler did, because they're going to say, this is a lot of pressure. I'm going to leave at a certain time. Yeah. At a school like Iowa, which I would include Nebraska, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Illinois, even, if they get good. You can do that, but can you win at the level that Kirk did consistently for 27 years, or really 25, because the first two weren't really winning seasons? And that's going to be the hard thing. I don't know that. I think it's going to be a sweet spot. And I wrote, unless Day coaches the Buckeyes into his 60s, I'll say Ferentz's record will stay in place at least another 25 years, and then Kirk will be 95 years old, but he still might be coaching. So,
yeah, I mean, I would be. The Day example is a great one, because, I mean, if they go 9-3, I mean, it's going to be. He'll be lucky to keep his job if they go 9-3 some year, and then if he goes even just 10-2 the next year and doesn't win a Big Ten championship, they'll be, what I mean? Like, I just don't see the patience being there unless he just constantly goes 11-1 to 12-0. But I just don't think that's going to happen in today's day and age. I mean, the Big Ten's tough. Anyway, so it's remarkable to me that it's just, I just don't think we're going to see it again.
Yeah, I mean, at Ohio State, you've got to make the playoff at minimum 4 out of 5 years. And maybe you could get away with not winning the championship, Big Ten championship, 3 out of those 5 years, but it's a pressure cooker. I mean, it's different. And Kirk is, had and this is kind of speaks to the person Kirk is, that Kirk's built up a lot of equity and his wins have allowed him to do that. And I think there's enough smart people in Iowa to recognize that, yeah, we're not happy, or people aren't happy with 8-5, but it's not going to be 8-5 in perpetuity. And this is the high floor for a place like Iowa. You've got to accept that you're just not going to go out and get 4 and 5 stars or buy those now in the transfer portal. Or you've got to understand that the places like Iowa are just not going to be able to win 10 plus games every single year. And enough smart people have decided that that's the right thing to do. And Kirk too, because Kirk had an opportunity. I mean, the Chiefs wanted to hire him. When Scott Pioli took over, they offered him the job, and it took him some time, but he ended up deciding he wanted to stay at Iowa. And I think that's remarkable for him, and probably hurt Pioli, because if he would have had Kirk, then he might have been able to keep him for a while. And of course, the Chiefs will say, well, yeah, but that led us to Andy Reid. So, okay, sure. It's mutually beneficial and all, except for Scott Pioli. But I think this is, it shows that his heart was in Iowa. And I'm glad to see he got that outpouring, because I know, we all get this stuff, and I was kind of pissed about it, frankly, on Saturday night after writing, that, and then somebody's like, okay, well, now that he's got the record, get rid of him.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are to say that stuff? It pisses me off.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was very, except for maybe an occasional snippy comment or two, I do feel like I've noticed an appreciation for the Ferentz era, for Kirk Ferentz, obviously the person, the man. You can't argue with kind of the way he handles himself, the way he treats people. I think all that stuff people are really appreciating right now. And I think, I saw someone, a couple people saying, I think in our 3-word headlines and post game, it's like, it'd be great if, wouldn't it be great if Kirk Ferentz could go to the playoffs this year? We know it's a long shot at this point. They would have to really get going, but we're going to talk about later in the show what their Big Ten chances are here. But it's one of those things where I think people are sensing that the end is coming at some point here, and they're starting to appreciate him, et cetera. And I think people would love to, see him have one more good season. You know what I mean? And I don't count. I don't know. Do you count 2023? I mean, it was just a weird year. I mean, I guess it was remarkable what he did with that kind of god-awful offense and still won 10 games, but I wouldn't count that as a magical Ferentz season to me. I feel like they still need one of those. But even 2021, I wouldn't go that far. Mm. I think I'm thinking 2015 level-ish, where you're just in the, you're legitimately in the mix for a long time.
Yeah,
it'd be nice to. I think a lot of people would love to see that. Is it possible? I don't know. What do you think?
This year, it might be. It's challenging, no question, because of the schedule. It is really difficult, and whether it's the playoffs, I think, obviously, I think everybody would like to see that, but we also thought Hayden had that one last chance too in 97. They started off 4-0. They were crushing everybody. Tavian Banks was the September Heisman winner. And then the wheels kind of fell off. There were injuries. There were close losses, the kicking situation, and legitimately they should have been 10-1, and a quarterback gets hurt, breaks his hand, so you just, all those things added up for him. And so he didn't get that send off. And then his final year, of course, was not a good year. I think that's what you look at with Kirk, is you want him to have that last hurrah, the chance to an encore season of tipping your cap. Now, when is that? Is that this year? Is that next year? Is it 5 years down the road? I don't know. I think it's not 5 years down the road, but I'll say this, that getting to see him swarm, I think, was about as cool as it got, because no coach has done that. It's just him and Hayden. But Kirk has been remarkable in his ability to just stay out of the limelight, let his players do their players. And, whereas like PJ, he'll be out in front running with his players and stuff. And Kirk's never been that way. But I think for them to respond that way, and have Jaden Harrell and Xavier Wampa and Jackson Rexroth dump him with Powerade, I'm sorry. And then to swarm off the field, I thought was just kind of the perfect end for this, for a perfect culmination. I'm glad he got his moment. And, I was critical, and I am critical that I thought two people should have been there to celebrate it. And that was the governor of the state of Iowa.
Yeah.
Because, in 1991, which would have been our senior year of high school, Terry Branstad fought through a blizzard to get to Iowa City to give Hayden Fry a cake for winning his 100th game. And I know the governor of our state is a Cyclone fan, but Kirk Ferentz is the most recognizable sports figure in the state. It only makes sense to come to Iowa City to celebrate that accomplishment, to put Iowa on a stage. I thought that was a miss by our governor. Secondly, and this isn't even a bigger miss, I don't know what the hell Tony Petitti's thinking. But when you have a coach setting this record, you need to be there. You knew it was going to happen. This wasn't just some magical, maybe Iowa State might have counted as that. Like we didn't know. And no, you need to be there. You need to be there handing them a plaque or something coming off the field. And to have them both miss that moment, and then, of course, ESPN not even to say anything, I thought that was disrespectful as a news outlet. But frankly, the governor and Tony Petitti should have been there. I just do not understand why they wouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, on the Petitti thing especially, because, it was on BTN.
Yeah.
It was this perfect moment for him to, I don't know, not that he needs to win points, but, it's just sort of like it's a good move. It's a good PR move for the Big Ten. Very strange. Very strange. I wonder why, no one ever brought it up to him, or he didn't think of it, or didn't think much of the accomplishment. That's he knew. All of them are bad. All of them are bad. But
yeah, the week before, at the Iowa State game, I'm looking around and I don't see him there. And I know Brett Yormark's there, but he's not. And so I get a hold of the Big Ten, and talk to one person who intimately knows. And Tony Petitti was at Wisconsin that day. And I was told, well, Tony just he wants to be on, when teams are on campus, he wants to be able to visit them on campus. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that means we'll be at Iowa next week.
Yeah.
And no Iowa, I don't know where he was. I didn't ask, but I just thought, and I don't know that he was at Izzo when Izzo set the record either. He was at Michigan State for that. Now that was a little different. Basketball can have some, you don't want to go to like 3 or 4 games in a row necessarily, but I do think though, and I think Michigan State plays a home and home with Iowa this year. Am I wrong or right in men's basketball? I can't remember. But if Izzo is in Iowa City, that would be a great opportunity for Kirk, Lisa, and Tom Izzo to all get together and have a picture of the 3 winningest coaches in the 3 major sports. And to me, I think that would be important.
Yeah. So Scott, where do you think? This doesn't rank number 1, obviously, on Kirk Ferentz's biggest moments, but it got me reflecting on maybe some of his biggest moments. Where would you put, atop his, the Ferentz Mount Rushmore of moments? Let's say, during his Iowa tenure.
Yeah, this is kind of like Cherry Garcia for that, kind of like hey, this is your dessert type of thing.
Yeah, right.
The Mount Rushmore, I would say 6-4, because it represents that year. There was such a, nobody in their right mind would have thought that team, after losing at Arizona State the way they did, was going to have anything, and instead they go on and then lose every running back on the team practically, and then go on and tie for a Big Ten championship. And that was the only other time in his history he's addressed the crowd at home, when he got a Big Ten championship trophy, when a Big Ten representative came to Iowa City for it. And
how about that?
Yeah. And I would say in Minneapolis in 2002, that was,
Yep.
To have holding roses, even though they didn't get to go to the Rose Bowl, but and the fans trying to take the goalposts out of the Metrodome. That would be one. I think 2015 as a season, but the win at Nebraska, it was just wow. He did, and he was almost incredulous at the end, in the press conference. And Bob Brooks got his tape recorder out last season. He got to cover the team. I thought that was something. Then I think probably winning the Orange Bowl is probably the other, because that was the team that had the highest ranking, 7th. The only time Iowa's won a major bowl game. I mean, a BCS bowl at that time, and then the other one that stands out to me, I think, is the ultimate epitome of the Kirk Ferentz era and how he was able to do it was getting just boat raced at Penn State in 16. I mean, 599 yards. You got George Kittle playing, he's hurt, and they just looked dreadful. And then to come back the next week, I mean, that team was almost invincible, that Michigan team. And you look across Iowa, and they've got walk-ons everywhere. You've got Nate Wheating starting at tight end for George Kittle. You've got Cole Croston. You got Boone Myers, and they're going against the defense the defense. I mean, there's like 8 guys who get drafted in the first 3 rounds on that defense. 9-0. I think the teams were like, I remember the stat, 19% on third down against that defense. And yet Iowa was able to pull out 14-13 after as pathetic as they looked in that week.
Yeah,
but to just
no kidding.
But just to drag them down into Ferentzville and fight like hell to win that game, that told me everything I wanted to know about Kirk Ferentz, which is they respond better to adversity than any other. He is a coach, and his players respond better to adversity than any other team, any other coach I've ever seen in any other sport.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I think you picked the highlights there. I think 04, the whole 04 season, there was a lot of magical moments there. I mean, certainly the Tate to Holloway, but that wasn't like a Ferentz moment. That was more like a Tate moment. I would add to that list maybe the 55-24 win over Ohio State. I mean, I really feel like that was a signature moment. It also involved his son. I mean, Brian Ferentz's best coordinated game of his tenure as offensive coordinator, and that was, that had to be. That's still. I mean, people still revere that day. Did you know that Iowa once beat Ohio State 55-24? And then it was. I wouldn't say there was one, and maybe you can remember a moment, but. After starting 0-2 in 2020, after all the racial tumult of the summer, Amir Smith-Marset gets the DWI. Things are just seem like guys are transferring. I think it was maybe 3 black players had transferred in the first couple weeks of the season. It just felt like, oh, is this the end? And I remember talking to Graham. I had talked to Graham Couch that week on our radio show. He covers Michigan State, and he's like, "Yeah, it just feels like the end. We've seen this with D'Antonio, and it just, you just sometimes you just know." You can see when the end is coming. And I was like, you know what? I think maybe this is going to be the end for Ferentz. And then what does he do? He goes and wins 12 in a row. Yeah, right. Six in a row to end that season. And they were playing as good as anybody in the Big Ten. Yeah. And then, of course, 6-0 to start the next year. And then, there were some impressive wins in that. Yeah. That 2021, obviously the 51-14 at Maryland. I think that's the last time they've hit 50. Could have had 50 this past weekend if they kicked a field goal instead of went for 4th down late. But, and then, of course, pinnacle there being the top 5 matchup against Penn State. Right. Iowa's most recent ranked win. So, obviously, it's been 4 years. But still, there's been some – that night at Kinnick was unbelievably magical, in terms of just the volume. 8 false starts on Penn State in that game where Kinnick was just insane. They came, Torrey Taylor was insane. Jack Campbell was insane. Knocking Clifford out of the game. And I don't know. I know that was a game, but still that's a Kirk Ferentz moment. Yeah. You rise to that's 12 in a row after the adversity that I just described.
Yeah, and I think, that pass from Spencer Petras to Nico Ragaini, I mean, that was, very impressive too. And you're right, the 2020 part of it, also is it's kind of the good and the tough, and this again speaks to Kirk Ferentz, because in the summer when this was going on, that summer it was really touch and go with him. I didn't know if he'd be able to handle this and survive it, and I was just reporting it. I wasn't going to offer an opinion on it. I was just reporting it, and pretty much from the gist that I got, and I'm sure maybe you too, talking to a lot of parents, former players, even current players at times, just most of them were like, I don't know if he can do it or not, but he deserves the chance to be able to prove it. And he changed enough. And you look at their numbers for attrition, it's pretty low. You look at the players who dumped him with Powerade, African-American players. You look at everything that they've accomplished since then has been really impressive. And it shows that he could have walked away. Yeah. He could have just said, look, he could have felt personally wounded. Mm-hmm. He could have decided that, hey, this is not for me, or, whatever. And instead he decided, no, I'm going to make this right. And he did, because it needed to change. And I know some people don't want to believe that, or revisionist history here. It needed to change, period. It had to change, and it has changed, and it's changed for the better. It's a much more welcoming environment and needed to be. And so I think this is, his testament. And then again, as you said, they lost those two close games. So they're up 17-0 in Northwestern in an empty stadium. If it had been full, they might have pulled it out. But, with a horrible game plan. And then Amir gets an OWI. And next thing you know, they win 6 straight by an average of 21 points a game. I mean, they were crushing people. If they would have played Michigan, they would have gotten Harbaugh fired.
Yeah.
Michigan backed out.
I think so.
They did back out.
Yeah.
And
Iowa mauled Penn State that year. They had Clifford and Will Levis. I mean, future draft pick for the Titans.
Yep, and Davion Nixon his Euro step on the interception return. So he's had a lot of moments on the field, but I think what anybody who played for him or works with him will say it's more of his impact off the field and how he's handled himself and handles the people around him, because that's more difficult for people who don't know him or just watch him coach, and that's fair. I don't know Matt Nagy. I just watched him coach the Bears or Ben Johnson or whatever. Right. But he's the type of guy that when you have an interaction with a custodian or somebody who makes the food for the people, that he goes out of his way to thank them. He sends them handwritten notes. When I won an award, from FWAA, he sent me a handwritten note, and he does that with everybody, and it's just who he is. And he's the type of guy, he remembers names. And I remember at Carroll, he was there, and then even the iClub people are like, come on, we got to get going. And he's just, just such a genuine human being, but he's also got standards and ideals and principles, and you can't cross those. And I think, so that's the kind of person that I think people want when you're improvement driven, that you want somebody who holds you to account, but makes you feel better and makes you feel loved. And that's all the things that Kirk does. So, and that's why so many people swear by him. So many players,
Yeah. Well, speaking of feeling better, GameDay Men's Health can make you feel better. Kirk's 70 now. Maybe he can feel like he's in his 20s again with a little dose of GameDay Men's Health. No, that's how Scott and I feel. We're in our early 50s with our testosterone replacement therapy we're doing with GameDay, and it's been tremendous. You can get connected with them as well. You can improve your mood. You can improve your energy. Every aspect of your life, honestly, can be kind of recharged, and you can feel just that energy again to work out, run like I am. I've got a half marathon this Sunday. Getting scared about it with this flight to Rutgers, before and after, and no sleep. But we'll see how it goes. But I trust GameDay Men's Health will have me ready for it. You can get connected with them, free private No obligation consultation at GameDayMen'sHealth.com or visit Ankeny, West Des Moines, or North Liberty location, Scott. So, yeah, I'm getting a little nervous about this. My foot's hurting.
Oh, man.
A little. My hips I played tennis the other night. Shouldn't have. Feeling a little bit soreness in my hip, but I'll get through it. I'm not sure if I'm going to do as well as I thought, but again, I got game day on my side, so I'm hoping for a good time. We'll see how it goes. I'll report back to you guys next week.
I think your Wednesday morning shot will help you out, Chad. I think it'll get you right. Game day always does for me. And This morning, I had a nice workout and then went and got my shot, and now here I am. This is we're talking on late Monday night, during the second Monday night football game here, but it's I feel just as spry as I did 12 and a half hours ago, so I'll take it.
Yeah, we are coming to you a couple days early this week on purpose. Number one, we wanted to kind of recap Kirk Ferentz's accomplishment after a game that was otherwise pretty uneventful in terms of excitement in the game, and also because it's a short week for the Hawkeyes. So I'm flying out Thursday morning. We want to get this pod in your hands a little bit early to kind of talk about Hawkeye football heading into the Big Ten, Scott. So let's talk about actual football now that we've talked about Kirk Ferentz. What stood out to you the other night? You and I were both there at the game. I was glad you were there. And you've got big Indiana-Illinois game this week on your trip list. That's going to be a huge one for Hawkeye fans to watch as well, because Indiana comes to town next week for a 2:30 Peacock game. Yeah, by the way. But I don't know. What do you take out of the Gronowski? The air it out Hawkeyes, the Gronowski passing game. The Hawkeyes throw for 234 yards between their two quarterbacks. Gronowski only had one second half drive, to his credit, because Caden Weechin had the other. So, right. Hank Brown got the rest. So if he would have played a full game, he probably throws for close to 300. But he almost gets to 200 and 234 as a team. So what did you make of all that, even though it was UMass?
I don't think, the opponent's the opponent. It's really, to me, about instilling confidence in this passing game, and I think that was mission accomplished. He's 16 of 24. He had 2 touchdown passes on his first 2 drives to Seth Anderson. I thought that was really important and impactful. You want to get your receivers unlocked, because I'm sure they were frustrated by the first couple of weeks, not getting the ball very much, getting missed when they're open and then dropping passes. There were too many drops. There were still 4 drops the other day, and that's too many. But I think just being able to kind of see the progress, and maybe it was somewhat of a glorified 7-on-7 at times, but that doesn't matter. He completed the passes and he needed to, and I think that's important in his progress. I can see obvious strides being made in Mark Gronowski and how he's able to move the offense. Every step of the way, it's going to get incrementally more difficult. Rutgers does not have a good defense, frankly, not on either side, but they still have Big Ten athletes, and you have to be cognizant of that. But overall, Chad, I thought it was a good step forward for him. He needed a slump buster, and that's what I got. He got
me again.
I know. I'm sorry.
Mark Grace.
Yeah. I'm not as funny as him, and I can't deliver it as well. But what did you come away with, Chad?
What stood out to me was something Ferentz said afterwards. Actually, you know him. He listens to his Sirius XM in the morning on the way and on the way home, and it seems like he always pulls something from that. He pulls it into his press conferences, and he was talking about Brian Hoyer, who I think you pointed out he coached against, right?
Yeah, Michigan State.
And he played for the Bears as well at one point, right?
Played for like 15 teams or something, but
yeah. He's been on a lot of 8 teams in 15 years, but the one he was on the most was the Patriots, and Ferentz was talking about that even when Hoyer was the backup to Tom Brady, which obviously he was, that even the Brady teams took 4 to 6 weeks to really kind of figure out who they were, and. If you watch enough NFL football that's the case. Even teams where you have guys that have been there 7-10 years, it still takes time to adjust to the new pieces. And now, of course, in the college game, it changes every year. Now, everybody's dealing with the same thing, but I do feel like that this really, the reason Ferentz said it is because he's thinking about this stuff. You know, that's why he says it. It's just coming to his mind. He's not scripting this stuff, but this is where his mind, you can see where his mind is with this team. Like, I know this team has the parts, you know, or at least he thinks they have, that Gronowski can be a really good quarterback for them. And I think he's just sensing what we kind of predicted on, at least I did, was that I think they're going to be better after this first 5-game block than before it, during it. I thought it would be a challenge to go 4-1 here, and I picked him to go 4-1 here. So that's what I took away from this is, and I can see the progress being made. For a great example, Sam Phillips. Mm-hmm. You needed to get him involved. The guy had one touch his first game as a Hawkeye, and it was on a punt return after he replaced Weechin, and he was electric with it.
Yeah,
he had one target against Iowa State, and it was a really nice catch for 15 yards. They need to, I know they know he's a decent player, and then he was their best receiver the other day. Obviously, he had 3 catches for 75 yards. Stuff like that. You're figuring these things out as these are 2 new guys, Gronowski, Phillips. You lost your starting running back. You've lost your tight end. This is going to have to be an evolving team. So I thought the other night was encouraging in that sense. I feel like they're figuring things out. And as always, Scott, I feel like the defense is sort of going to be fine. They look like they're going to be pretty decent this year on defense. So we're back to the offense. Can they put it together to, maybe win more than 7-8 games?
Yeah, this is. I think it's one of those things where you could see the incremental progress. Is it fast enough? It's not fast enough for the coaches. It's that's for sure. They wanted it done yesterday, and maybe it'll happen in a couple weeks. But I think it's in the passing game. That's what you wanted to see. Your quarterback completed 2/3 of his passes. He was on target in most of those areas. His receivers got involved. They made plays after the catch. They feel good about themselves. Your quarterback feels good about himself. And largely the protection was pretty good too. And I think there's still areas. I mean, Gronowski has a lot of areas to grow in still. I think he holds the ball too long. I think he waits too long on things. He needs to speed up his game. And that's going to be impressed upon him this week to an extent, but certainly next week when they play Indiana and then beyond, because there's still a season after that game. On defense, I like what I saw up front. They completely dominated a really bad team, no question about it. But, I think, again, getting more people, I think that 15 different defensive linemen saw action. That's a good thing. Linebackers, one thing I liked and I was encouraged with was the tweak that they made when they go to a cash in a passing situation, that Harrell leaves the game and Jackson Rexroth enters the game. And I think that's smart because, Harrell, he's a sledgehammer at middle linebacker, and he's a really good run stopper, but Rexroth's a better pass defender than he is. So he's out there, and I think having him and Shire, and when other teams, they expect him to go in passing, I think that's really good. And now the one key area that we all know that I'm really surprised we haven't seen is, where's your interceptions? Yeah. The turnovers that needs to change. And they could be pretty ordinary if they don't get that, because it impacts both sides of the ball. So anyway, for me, good incremental progress. It felt good for them. They've got a long way to go, but it's a long season.
Yeah, I thought Gronowski's, I think his arm talent, he's got a strong arm. And I think that's what people were frustrated about early, is why not throw deep a little bit more against Iowa State. The one time you did it, you got a PI call, but he also said they were taking that away. So yeah, you got to make them pay though in other ways, and he didn't do that against Iowa State, obviously. So I think Lester's evolving too. I wrote about this in my DVR Monday, is that we noticed a lot of screens, Scott. There was different variations of screens. 6 running back screens for a total of 68 yards. There was also one play to Ortworth that was a really nice RPO screen-like play where Ortworth was lined up on the right. Gronowski runs an RPO, and Ortworth basically runs straight out to the sideline and stops and catches a screen for 13 yards. That's the kind we've pleaded for Iowa to have a screen game, and I felt like it started to come back a little bit. I mean, that Xavier Williams that was one of the most gorgeous plays of the game. I thought it was you expected the boot. I think it was Sam Phillips came along the backside of the line, so you expected Gronowski to roll out and boot to have his option route over there like they usually do with the tight end, or in this case Phillips. But he stops, turns around, drops a screen backwards to Xavier Williams, who gains 20 yards to the 4-yard line. I think it was the second drive, and they punch it in from there to Seth Anderson. So I like the screen game. I feel like just like last year, week 2, realized they needed to make some changes, and another change they did make was they moved Terrell Washington Jr. to third string, basically. They moved Williams and Patterson were the main ball carriers today. So they're tweaking, just like they did last year with the red zone offense after Iowa State. They made some changes. It's just the way it goes. It's the way Iowa does it, but I thought that those were nice changes as well. Screens and also kind of adjusting the personnel with running back.
And I still think Nathan McNeil might need to see more action. Just watching the way he moves, I really think that he's not just an innings eater. He's not just a young guy getting a couple of snaps at the end of a game. I think it's his second game now. So I think he's, let's see what happens with Kamari Moulton. I know there's a outside shot. He wasn't on the depth chart, but we'll see for him playing. I think it'd probably be more likely than a week from now is what I would look at. But still, I think McNeil, he looks the part to me. He looks like he's a guy that can take, and really be a valuable rotator, if not heavy carry guy. But, I tell you what, it was an awesome vibe in the stadium with the gold rush or the gold out there. And where you're going to get another awesome vibe, Chad? That's at Big Grove. I was just near Big Grove tonight in Cedar Rapids, and it was a great patio setting with Monday Night Football. And anywhere you go throughout Iowa, and Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Des Moines, and of course the OG and Solon, Big Grove has you covered. Great food. I think sometimes we just focus on the beer, but the food is fantastic at this place. It's always worth your time there. And of course, their signature is the Easy Eddie. I'm not much of an IPA guy, but I like Easy Eddie. I think it tastes it just has a smooth feeling to it. Citrus Surfer is also a favorite, the neighborhood beer. And of course, I like the 1939, and we're getting into Oktoberfest season, so I can't wait, So I think everybody, you get a chance this Friday night, you get looking for somewhere to go, check out the Iowa Rutgers game, or when I'll be in Bloomington on Saturday, and you want to watch another game at a bar, definitely take in Illinois, Indiana from Big Grove.
That's a night game too, right?
Yes, it is.
Sunday
NBC. It's Saturday night on NBC, and who would have thought? Indiana, Illinois would hit primetime NBC unless there was all the other games got canceled or something. But here we are.
Who's going to win that game, by the way?
Oh my gosh, I've done enough studying to not know.
Okay, that's gonna be a great matchup. I should be back in Iowa just in time to watch that Saturday night. So I'll watch that while I'm trying to fall asleep for my half marathon. How about that?
Yeah, there you go. Wrong game for that. It would have been more like Iowa Rutgers. You want to fall asleep.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you on the Nathan McNeil thing. I'm getting Tyler Goodson 2019 vibes, where there was a kind of a push these other running backs are fine, but this guy's really showing me something, the Kramer episode in the shower.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but this guy's really showing me something. I definitely want to see more of him. He's intriguing to me. Again, you get 2 games under his belt. Let's see what he can do this week at Rutgers. I would not hesitate. Unless there's something in practice that we don't know, I would not hesitate in putting him out there. He's got some wiggle. Seems like he's got some burst. They need big plays out of the running game right now. They just aren't getting it. I mean, Patterson's long the other day was, I think, 10, and Xavier Williams was 9, or vice versa. The 3 longest runs were Weechin, McNeil, and Gronowski.
Yeah.
So they're just either the last 2 weeks they haven't gotten any explosion out of the running game, of the running backs.
Yeah.
And that's why I think they need Moulton back too. Like if they could get Moulton back this week, that would be huge, because I think there are holes there for big runs, and they're just not getting the big runs. Patterson's doing fine. At least he's getting something out of these runs, but that's what they're missing right now in offense. I mean, I know the passing game could be better, but still, like Leicester counted on these big plays from the run game, and so does the Shanahan offense. So I'm with you on McNeil. Pro McNeil here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they've got the cumulative has been really good this year. I mean, even at Iowa State, I thought it was pretty decent. You know, they would have been better off if they had Kamari Moulton, because I think he's an upper level Big Ten running back. But I think that overall they need some explosion. You're right. They need to go and gouge and you know, not you know, and I think Patterson's been the most effective because he is. You go in and you know what you're going to get. He's going to punch you right in the face. And I think you need that from that running back, but you also need some explosion. And McNeil's the guy to me. And this isn't just like, look, you know, picking up rocks going, oh yeah, this is the guy, you know, he's young, you know, get the young guy in that we haven't seen like we tend to do with quarterbacks. No, I think this is one that we've seen a lot. You know, I have no reason to not think that he can't play. And then based on what we've seen in the spring and what we saw in fall camp and what we've heard from people, and then what we've seen when he's in games, he deserves to get some time. He deserves it. Yeah. He's a good player.
By the way, what did you think of Hank Brown the other day? I know it's a small sample size, but it was nice to see him for a whole quarter. I thought he was smooth operating the offense, and it reflected kind of what we saw in the spring game too.
I like him a lot.
Yeah.
I think they're okay there with him. And I haven't seen Heklinski, obviously, but I do like Hank Brown. I think he has a better pure arm than the starter. You know, so if he was to go in, I think that could change a little bit of the dynamic of the passing game. Yeah. Because I think he's got a stronger arm, you know, and a more lively arm. Now, does he have the handle? I mean, Gronowski's a winner. I mean, you know, and he's got a different element in the running game that I think is very helpful too. But I liked him. What did you think? Did you?
Yeah. No, I've heard good things about him. I know he's more of a natural thrower. Gronowski is not a natural thrower. Okay. He's more mechanical. Brown has the natural throwing ability that Lester likes, you know, like the Kirk Cousins type, on time. You could even the throw to Parker that was just off the mark for a deep touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really nice throw. You know, could have maybe been inside a little further, but just the touch on the ball. He just he has nice touch on the ball. I'm encouraged. We're not there yet. You know, it's not a quarterback controversy or anything. But this is a big part of this season, is developing the guy that can take over next year. And so it was nice to see him the other day. And I know they would never, ever do this. Okay, Scott. But rewind to that Iowa State game. And you got to pass the ball down the field with less than 2 minutes to go. You got to go 75 yards or whatever it was. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to a Hank Brown 2-minute quarterback, you know, a guy that's just, you know, he's going to throw. Like, because he's got the arm and I think better accuracy, but he's just not the all-purpose guy like Gronowski. I'm not saying it's a great idea. I'm just saying, like, I think this guy can help you.
Yeah, we're introducing a big-time controversy right now. But you know, I will say I agree with you in that if it was a pure passing situation, you just wanted a passer, a thrower.
That's what I'm saying.
That I think I would have more confidence in him as a thrower than I would in Gronowski.
Yes.
And I also think for this team, the toughness and the ability to run and probably leadership abilities, you know, Gronowski's got all of that. But I'm with you that one thing this program has lacked for far too long is is a seamless transition into quarterback to quarterback. And they haven't had very good quarterbacks. I mean, Nate Stanley was a good quarterback, a nice quarterback. You know, he had 68 career touchdowns. That was terrific. But he's like lionized now because, you know, what's happened since then. And Spencer was a fantastic person, great thrower, maybe would have fared better in the Shanahan style than he would have in the, you know, the other offense. But, you know, they just haven't had anything. And if that means that this year Hank Brown continues to grow and make strides, and if Gronowski continues to win, if he wins, then next year there wouldn't be this existential crisis at the quarterback position. You'd feel like, okay, Hank Brown, you're really good. We like Jeremy Heklinski. He's going to compete. They're all going to compete for this job. But you don't feel like, man, did we blow it in the portal or what? You know, and I think they're in good shape here. But, you know, I tell you what, Chad, if you're going to blow something, you know, in the Iowa City area, you might want to do that with Ackerman Plumbing nearby. And that is, you know, discover how the plumbing industry can be when you choose a customer first, independently owned and operated business like Ackerman Plumbing, that it services the Iowa City area. And we're thankful that they're here on Iowa Everywhere's Legends and Listeners and Instant Iowa. It is the only residential plumbing business that works just strictly in residential plumbing. So your calls matter and will always be answered in a timely manner when it's for a plumbing emergency. And we've had them come out before when we had an issue with our water heater, and they come in for routine service as well. Equipment replacement, like my sump pumps, I'm on a high water table, or upgrades like tankless water heaters and Walter filtration centers systems. Call Ackerman. And we love that a business is growing and they're looking for other service techs to help them with their business. So shout out to the Ackerman team, Corey, Stacy, Aaron, Nathan, and all the rest. Visit ackerman-plumbing.com for 5-star residential plumbing services in the Iowa City area.
Thank you for that, Scotty. Iowa at Rutgers, Friday night, 7 o'clock on Fox. Hawkeyes are only favored by 2.5. That surprised me a little bit. You probably know more about Rutgers than I do. I don't know. Like, Iowa seems like this is the type of game they should win, to me. Like, I like Iowa to win this game.
If Iowa's passing game is on point, and if they don't blow the turnover margin, they should win this decisively. I mean, and the thing is, I think people, you know, I can't speak to Vegas because Vegas is smarter than I am, but I do think that Vegas is looking at the scoring totals for Rutgers against two MAC teams and a really mid-level, FCS program. But, you know, they're giving up, almost 200 yards through the air to some of these teams. And, you know, they rank 103rd in sacks and 97th in sacks allowed. So Iowa's defensive line can really get after Ethan Kaliak-Manis, a player that seemingly has played against Iowa. Well, this is like the 4th straight year or something that they've played him, it feels like. So I think this is something that going into this game, if Iowa can get its passing game going at a reasonable pace, if they don't turn the ball over, Chad, I think this was like a 31-17 type of win, maybe even lower score than that, maybe 31-13.
Of course, the last time Iowa went to Rutgers, 2 defensive touchdowns in that game, one famously by Cooper DeJean, over the shoulder, Willie Mays type catch, and just, a tech mobile type of run into the end zone for a touchdown. And then was it Kayvon Merriweather had the return touchdown, right?
Yeah, Sebastian Castro blew it up, and Kayvon Merriweather. So 3 NFL guys.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
So it feels like the turnovers are due. I keep asking these guys about it, like, hey, no turnover. That's 12. It's 5 straight games now, Scott, without an interception. Going back to last year. That's crazy for a Phil Parker defense. Like, it's just, and they really haven't been that close to him. Interception. So
I know.
It's very interesting to see a lack of turnovers right now.
We're gonna have to replace the nickname. I mean, instead of the Doughboys, they're the Change Boys, and they got to start turning themselves back into it, because I'm sure guys like Riley Moss and Cooper DeJean and the like are like, dudes, you're too good for this. Make it happen.
Yeah. Now they have stayed, knock on wood, relatively healthy on that side of the ball thus far. Zach Lutmer dodged a bullet the other night. But yeah, to me, this game, as usual, is just going to be about what can Iowa do on offense. I think the defense will be fine. Rutgers barely beat Ohio. Ohio did beat West Virginia. Okay, they're a decent MAC team.
And they hung with Ohio State.
They hung with Ohio State for a while. So we'll give Rutgers credit, but you beat Ohio 34-31. I don't know. Like I feel like Iowa. This is just Iowa should be better in the trenches. Like I'd probably rather have Gronowski than Kylie Akmanis personally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
oh yeah, for sure.
And give me Iowa's defense. So
I mean, they allow almost 150 yards rushing per game, and they haven't played a power conference team yet. That's what I
mean. I feel like the line of scrimmage could be Iowa's this week.
They really struggled against Ohio in special teams and in passing, in all forms of the defense. So it was this should be a game where if Iowa can run the ball on them, can they complete passes? Can they extend drives? Can they not turn the football over? If they can do all those things that Iowa should do, then again, I think Iowa wins in decent fashion. If they can't, or if they turn it over, or defense doesn't slow down Ethan Kaliak-Manis, which means you got bigger problems in the big picture,
right?
Then it could come down, and you do not want to give Rutgers a signature win right now. You just don't. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're 3-0. One of my questions in my mailbag was, "Hey, do you think Rutgers will be ranked if they beat Iowa?" I'm like, no, they won't be, but it would be a signature win for Greg Schiano. It'd be a big win. You don't want that. You don't want that on prime time. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So Chad, you remember the game at Maryland? That was a crazy Friday night atmosphere. They were in black. I actually have before and after pictures from the beginning of the game in the third quarter of the student section. I took them for my seat there. And it was a massacre of epic proportions that night. Are you thinking that something like that could happen in Piscataway?
I'm just thinking you're talking Friday night. I remember Maryland was supposedly revved up for that game, early in the season. I think Iowa had just beaten Colorado State the week before, just barely. So it was like, Iowa's maybe not that great. Maryland's undefeated. They got, Tagovailoa. They got these guys, and Sebastian Castro went down and broke that guy's leg, and I think they committed 7 turnovers in that game. I think 6 interceptions. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think I was going to win 51-14 like they did at Maryland in 2021, but it just has that similar vibe where, okay, have your blackout, whatever, but here comes a line of scrimmage team, and Iowa had a great night that night. Let's be honest. I mean, that was one of Spencer Petrus's best games. Tyler Goodson had a great game. The defense was on fire, but anyway. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I mean, if Iowa loses this game, that's could be a long season. But if they win this, it sets up a really exciting week next week, Scott, against Indiana, which could be undefeated. They are, I think, 4.5-point favorite over Illinois in the game you're covering on Saturday night. But there's one other game Saturday that I did want to mention before we close out, legends and listeners. Michigan at Nebraska. Wolverines are a slight favorite on the road. That's going to be a really interesting game Saturday afternoon.
Right. I mean, you saw Michigan annihilate CMU and Joey Labus the other day, 63-3. And I thought, wow, okay. Bryce Underwood is an all-world talent, and he's legit, and he's going to make it happen. I just don't know if it's going to be consistently this year. Next year, he's going to be, watch out. This guy is going to be a machine. I do think Nebraska has improved. Now, you watch the first game against Cincinnati. They were kind of dominant for a while, and then all of a sudden, whoa, they might lose this game, and then they had an interception in the end zone to clinch it, and Dylan Raiola was impersonating Patrick Mahomes as usual, and then you had their wins over teams like UMass, Akron and Houston Christian. Is that the right one? But anyway, this one to me, it really is a tone setter. I think it's obviously more important for Nebraska from a program standpoint.
For sure.
However, for a season standpoint, it's more important for Michigan, because if Michigan loses this game, I don't know that they got playoff opportunities right now, because you're talking about a team that's already lost once at Oklahoma. And I think it really calls into question the coach, Sharon Moore, because he punted on the games 3 and 4, including the Big Ten opener on the road, to take a suspension instead of 1 and 2. And I think you could make the case that it's very selfish, because he's a former player at Oklahoma. He wanted to return there, and you punted on the Big Ten opener on the road. And Nebraska, say what you will about him, that's an intimidating environment. And if they get going, that could be a very difficult environment to compete in. So I think it's really interesting to me, this one.
Yeah, I think it's the type of game where if, Nebraska wins, then now they got a lot on the table.
Yeah.
This season, their schedule's pretty friendly. Definitely could set up that Black Friday game as something special, where maybe the Hawkeyes play spoiler in that one. I'm impressed with Nebraska so far. I am. I think that it'll be a really fun game to watch. That's all I'm saying. So I'll pick the Huskers, and I'll pick the Hoosiers. I'll pick the Hoosiers to come in here next weekend undefeated, and I'll pick the Hawkeyes. Those are the 3 biggies this week.
Yeah, those are my 3 as well, in that same order. I think it's going to be the Illinois-Indiana is just off the charts. I mean, they've only met once as ranked teams, and that was 75 years ago. That they just more often than not they've been. I mean, I think they've met with they've finished with the winning seasons together in the Big Ten like 8 times. And then in the last 30 years, they've combined for like 17 last place finishes. So it's so shocking to me that this is if we would have been talking like 3 years ago, Illinois, Indiana, if it was at night, it was because it was on BTN. It was special for BTN, not NBC. And it's the number 2 game of the week. And of course, you've got Michigan State playing at 11 o'clock Eastern at USC.
That's crazy. So,
yeah. And but that's where Fox has some issues. And I think this is kind of fascinating in the TV realm. I don't know how many people get into this or not, but when you look at the schedule that was given to the Big Ten this week, first of all, there's 8 games, and the inventory, you've got but 3 of those 8 that they don't control. I think it's 3. No, sorry, 2 of those 8 they don't control, which is Washington at Washington State and Purdue at Notre Dame. So that cuts it to 6. Right. You have Friday night football, so that cuts it to 5. CBS had the number 1 pick. They took Michigan at Nebraska. NBC had the number 2. They took Illinois and Indiana. So then the rest of them are Oregon at Oregon State, or Oregon State at Oregon. They cannot show that game in noon because it's on the West Coast. It'd be at 9 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Michigan State at USC. They cannot show that at noon because it's on the West Coast. The only game they could have shown at noon was Maryland at Wisconsin. Yeah, exactly.
Big noon. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's Texas Tech, Utah instead, it looks like.
Yeah. So they're going to Utah, which is 10 o'clock Eastern, or 10 o'clock local time.
10 o'clock Mountain, yeah.
Yeah. So then they decided that they wanted the primetime game with USC and Michigan State, which, okay. Michigan State, to their credit, has not really done a lot of complaining, at least publicly. I'm sure they're not happy about that, but it's still pretty damn late.
Yeah, I will. If I'm not asleep by that point for my half marathon on Sunday, I'm going to be in trouble. So let's hope I'm sleeping through that game. But anyway, we'll talk to you next week. We'll give you the Iowa Rutgers report, the half marathon report, everything else here on Legends and Listeners, only on Iowa Everywhere. Talk to you next time.